But I can guarantee you this. The days when the Jewish people remain passive in the face of genocidal enemies, those days are over.
And joining me now, nationally syndicated radio talk show host, the great one, Mark Levin. Mark, I watched this speech. What a comparison. Here's Prime Minister Netanyahu with moral clarity and depth, confidence in a cause, the understanding of evil in our time. And I could not help but compare to our own president, small, petty, weak, frankly ignorant of evil in our time. I just want to get your initial thoughts and observations.
I went to this speech. I watched it in person, Sean. I know the media is reporting that all the Democrats are upset with Netanyahu and they were boycotting. Let me tell you something. That is a lie. Everybody stood on their feet, standing ovation after standing ovation after standing ovation, and that includes Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer. That included a number of members of the Black Caucus. I was watching very, very carefully. And then after he speaks, we get 1, 2, 6, 10 Democrats trashing him, saying how it undermines Obama. We got Obama, who pretends he didn't watch the speech. This was a historic speech. Some people have compared him to Churchill. I will compare him to Reagan. People say, where's our next Reagan? You saw our next Reagan. And so instead, Obama and Rice and Powers and Kerry used their Saul Alinsky tactics to say we support Israel, but they trash Israel's leader. That's their commander-in-chief. That's their prime minister who is trying to protect his country from all the Islamic terrorism that surrounds it. And so, yes, he spoke not just to the American people, not just to Congress, to the entire world. It was a magnificent speech.
You know, he said yesterday, I have a moral obligation to speak up in the face of these dangers while there's still time to avert them. I used a simple analogy, Mark. 1 + 1 = 2. Radical mullahs in Iran, stated desire for a modern-day Holocaust, coupled with weapons of mass destruction, equals the potential of that Holocaust, the consequences of which could be catastrophic. What part of this does a president not understand? Because they say, oh, we can't deny the Iranians from getting nuclear weapons. What is he missing? Just like with radical Islam.
Well, if he says we can't deny the Iranians from getting nuclear weapons, that's the problem, isn't it? You know, past presidents have worked with the Russians and any other government to try and prevent these third world actors, in this case terrorists, from getting nuclear weapons. The problem is our foreign policy is such a shambles, there's nobody to work with. Now, Obama knows what Iran's capable of. You know why, Sean? Because I went back and I read the World Threat Assessment of the U.S. intelligence community last year that his government put out. His government said Tehran has made technical progress in a number of areas, including uranium enrichment, nuclear reactors, ballistic missiles, from which it could draw if it decided to build missile deliverable nuclear weapons. Worse, he said, we judged that Iran would choose a ballistic missile as its preferred method of delivering nuclear weapons. Iran's ballistic missiles are inherently capable of delivering weapons of mass destruction, and Iran already has the largest inventory of ballistic missiles in the Middle East. And finally, it goes on to say they have the means and motivation to develop longer-range missiles, including an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM. That hits Europe. That hits the United States. This is no joke, and I'm scared to death with this president in office.
All right, let me ask you about the history. There are campaign operatives, Obama campaign operatives. Right now, there is elections in Israel on the 17th, and right now they are working actively to embarrass, to humiliate, and defeat Netanyahu, who I would argue is the Churchill Reagan of our time and Neville Chamberlain Obama of our time. But I want to put up, as we talk here, the history and have you comment on it. It goes back to 2009 when the president was in Cairo and he was critical of Israel for their new settlements. And then it goes to 2009 at the UN, Obama critical of Israel for the new settlement construction. And then it goes to an interview in March in 2010. Hillary calls for actions of Netanyahu, quote, insulting. Obama, in 2011, Obama says he wants Israel to return to the 67 borders, something we said we would never do to them. And John Kerry said in 2014, Hot Mike, Israel's operation. It's a hell of a pinpoint operation, hell of a pinpoint operation. Then we've got the French President Sarkozy's comments, Hot Mike, and Obama's comments after that. And now we've got the president now. In one sense, he helped Netanyahu make this a much bigger speech than it would ever be. Why is there hostility towards Israel, and yet the president cannot even say the words radical Islam?
Because Netanyahu is a warrior. He's a combat veteran. He is a leader who takes his commander-in-chief responsibility seriously, and he knows if he and his country make a mistake, it's over. Barack Obama is a community activist, he's a rabble-rouser, he's an ideologue, and he's an appeaser. That's the difference. So what Obama wants is a like-minded leftist in Israel, and they're there to work with to accommodate his agenda. Now, I would be very careful about his agenda if I were the leftists in Israel, since there's been more genocide, more rape, more enslavement under this president than any president in modern history. You know, I think back to Reagan. Reagan was the liberator. He liberated hundreds of millions of people under the Soviet Union. This president is the imprisonment president. Society after society is collapsing, and he's making nice with Iran, which is an Islamic terrorist regime. No question about it.
All right. Now the more important question is going forward. My hope is that the Prime Minister's speech could alter the trajectory of these talks. But we keep reading reports that in the out years, in fact, that the Iranians would, in fact, be able to enrich uranium and their centrifuges would continue to spin, and that they would ultimately have a bomb, and they have the delivery systems, as you rightly point out, to hit Europe and to hit the United States and Israel and create havoc all over the Middle East. So what happens from here? How do we stop this? You're a constitutional attorney above everything else. What can Congress do to stop this deal, if anything?
The Senate must demand that whatever deal comes out of this must go to the Senate, be treated as a treaty, and require the two-thirds vote. Obama can't get two-thirds vote for one of his appeasement deals. I saw that today when I watched the members of Congress standing steadfastly, not with Obama, and that includes Democrats, but with Netanyahu. So the fact of the matter is he's going to try to evade Congress again, the Senate in particular, and they better prepare to do something effective once and for all to try and save our republic, save our Constitution, and save their own damn reputations in Congress. And they better be thinking about it right now.
Yeah, well, they didn't do a very good job of keeping their promise, did they, Mark, as it relates to the Department of Homeland Security and defunding Obama's executive orders on immigration.
Sean,
they caved. They're very timid on that today. Unbelievable.
As a matter of fact, they voted today to give Congress's imprimatur to Obama, violating the Constitution, the power of the purse, the naturalization and immigration section of the Constitution. We have a lawless imperial president, and we have a weak Congress, a timid Congress, and this is doing enormous damage to this country.
All right, the great one, Mark Levin, on radio stations all across the country. Mark, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.